Hello horror fans and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos, your guidebook to the strange, the weird and the worldwide paranormal. What's going on guys? It's a pleasure to have you all here. As per usual, I'll be your spirit guide Jack Finch as we turn our gaze toward the jewel of France, the City of Lights, and find out exactly what lurks beneath its ancient cobbled streets in the 5 most haunted places in Paris. Roll the clip.
Is somebody there?
Paris is one of the oldest cities in Europe, dating all the way back to the 3rd century BC, where it was founded by the Celtic Saxons as a trade route across the Seine, one of the most important rivers in European history, maintained by the Celtic Parisi tribe, of which the city derives its name. And as we often find with these types of things, with a lot of history comes a lot of haunting. Before we dive into that old thing though, you know how it goes folks. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you're a fan of this video, or just me, Kelly, and Top 5 Scary Videos in general, and hit that subscribe bell so you can stay up to date with our latest and greatest uploads. On with the show, or as the Parisians say, allons-y. Probably. Kicking off at number 5, Theatre de la Ville. Not gonna lie, this one is equal parts morosely charming and also completely terrifying. The Theatre de la Ville, meaning the City Theatre, was opened on the 30th of October and has a rich history of misfortune and tragedy. Until the fall of Napoleon III in 1870, it was known as the Imperial Theatre and showcased the dignitary of Paris in all their theatrical glory. One of the more tragic tales surrounding the theatre is the story of the French romantic poet and public eccentric Gérard de Nerval, who is best known for his sordid travel diaries and his strange habit of roaming the streets of Paris with his pet lobster in hand. Tragically, Nerval committed a grisly suicide in a particular shady corner of a nearby narrow street, and in death it is said that his spectre haunts the theatre. Spectators claim to have seen his form pop up on stage in a ghostly ploy to distract the actors. Apparently he's lost his lobster though. Next up at number 4, Parc Montsouris. Parc Montsouris is a picturesque picnic park in the heart of Paris, an otherwise perfect landscape for tourists and locals alike to enjoy on a hot summer's day. Opened in 1863, Parc Montsouris is one of the largest green spaces in Paris, comprised of 4 others which were created by Napoleon III and his prefect of the Seine, Baron Haussmann. They were made to be enjoyed by the ever-growing Parisian population and still are to this very day. Strange then that the grim history of a nearby paranormal hotspot is regularly avoided, blending both historical fact and local legend. The name of the park's only tomb, the Rue de la Tombe Issoire, which hints at its most notorious legend, that is Essai de Montsouris, a brigand who terrorised Paris during the 9th century, looting and pillaging passing travellers of the green area. Eventually he was caught and his head was lopped clean off by William of Aquitaine, but it didn't stop his spirit from continuing his terrifying regime, being one of the most notorious spirits to have been sighted in modern day Paris, often appearing at the park's Palais du Bardo. It may sound like hocus pocus, but still, stranger still, in 1911 the Palais was controversially sold to the government, but mysteriously it burnt down before any work could commence on it. The work of Montsouris? Well, probably. Coming in at number 3, The Man in the Black Coat. And I just absolutely love this creepy tale because it reminds me of one of my favourite films of all time, Midnight in Paris. It's not scary in the slightest, but check it out if you haven't. Great film. Anyway, as the legend goes, on one particular warm evening in 1925, a man named Jean Romier was sat reading in the grounds of the Jardin du Luxembourg when a handsome man in a black coat approached him and after conversation invited him to a private concert at his nearby home. Romier followed the man to his apartment on the Rue de Vaugirard, where he was treated to a delightful evening of classical music and poetry. After enjoying his night, Romier left, and on his way home he went to light a cigarette, but realised that he'd left his lighter back at the apartment. He ran back upstairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door, but to no response. He knocked and knocked when a nearby neighbour came out of their apartment, annoyed at all the banging, and told Romier that no one lived there. It had been abandoned for at least 20 years, after the previous tenant, a talented musician, had tragically passed away. Since then, any local Parisian will tell you that if you linger late enough in the Jardin du Luxembourg, eventually a man in a black coat will invite you to his apartment for a private concert. Would you go? Me? Nah, I'm alright. Swinging in at number 2, we have the Jardin des Tuileries, which, while having a beautiful sounding name, is actually the scene of an incredibly bloody past and dark, dark history. In the 16th century, the feared and nefarious Queen of France, Catherine de Medici, had many enemies, conspirators who'd like nothing more than to bludgeon her in her sleep and remove her from the throne. Because of this, she employed the brute strength and bloody tactics of her henchman, Jean the Skinner, who rounded up her enemies and set about on a campaign to murder them all. He did exactly that, and he was very effective at it. So effective that Queen Catherine herself started to grow paranoid of him, because he knew so many of her secrets and political intrigues. Well, of course, she decided the only course of action was to execute Jean the Skinner outside her palace at Tuileries. Since then, the Red Man, also known as the Red Spectre, has been known to haunt the gardens in his blood red attire. Marie Antoinette is said to have seen him just before losing her head, and it's commonly known that Napoleon consulted him during his rise as emperor to predict the outcome of forthcoming battles. That's pretty useful. And finally, at our number one spot, Les Catacombes. Because after all, it can be no other. There's no denying that the creepiest, eeriest, most paranormal place in Paris is the endless catacomb caverns that wind their way through the streets below. The catacombs of Paris are a myriad of underground ossuaries that allegedly hold the remains of more than 6 million people, which were created in an effort to eliminate the city's overflowing cemeteries. Whether you believe the tales that surround this haunted place or not, there's no denying that the Paris catacombs are an undeniable effigy to the dead and long lost souls of the City of Lights. Although there have been terrifying tales of entire tour groups going missing, people driven to insanity after being lost in the long dark of its winding tunnels, it's much simpler to see the real haunting that the catacombs possess, because the ghosts are in the very bones themselves, in the million memories that they represent, entire walls and tunnels built by the skeletal bones of the city's residents that have passed in and out of memory through a long, vibrant, rich, and oftentimes bloody history. Paris has seen a lot in her time, and the tunnels, well, they'll keep on going. Well, unfortunately folks, that's all we've got time for in today's video. Cheers for sticking around to the end. If you'd like to continue on with your horror binge, then feel free to hit that playlist floating shortly above. As always, it's been a pleasure, never a chore, making this video for you all. If you've enjoyed it, then be sure to hit that thumbs up button. As per usual, I've been your host Jack Finch. You've been watching Top 5 Scary Videos, and until next time, you take it easy.